I claimed I was faithful, but I've been secretly planning to run away with my ex to another country, and the first time I said it out loud, even just a whisper to my reflection while waiting for the kettle, I laughed, which is the noise your throat makes when terror borrows your body for a second. I'm Mara, I'm 33, and I'm an immigration paralegal, which is a particularly stupid job to have if you're also building a little escape hatch inside your phone at 2:11 a.m., because I spend my days assembling other people's proof of ties, leases, jobs, bank statements, reasons to return, while my own reasons to stay are folded into a showbox under the bed with the spare batteries and the passports I shouldn't have touched yet. I know the rules. I file the rules. And still, I am the woman whose Google Drive has 2 folders, client_221B supporting documents, and hidden inside a nesting doll of boring names, laundry lists, which is where the plan lives in bullet points, like an apology written ahead of time to whoever will eventually read it and think, really? Laundry? My husband is named Eli. He is gentle in the way that makes strangers ask him for directions and toddlers sit on his foot like it's a bench. He's a civil engineer who gets excited about culverts and thinks stormwater management is flirty if you say it in the right tone. We met at a trivia night where the host mispronounced Tchaikovsky and Eli corrected him so kindly the entire table decided to fall a little in love with him. He remembers my mother's complicated tea order and can pack a trunk so efficiently it looks like magic. If there were a pie chart of our marriage, the largest slice would be pleasant logistics. He is good. I keep practicing that sentence like a handrail on a stairwell. Eli is good. It doesn't cancel the other sentence. It only makes it heavier. My ex is Julian. If you hear a soft violin when I say his name, that's on me. I've been overdubbing our old scenes with nostalgia so aggressively that even the arguments have started to sound like warm weather. He's a documentary sound recordist. Picture him in headphones at dawn, standing knee-deep in reeds to catch the exact splash of a bird that will appear on screen for 2 seconds, and he was my entire 20s the way a song can be an entire summer. We lived in a sticky apartment with a window that liked to jam, ate toast at midnight because mornings were always spoken for by someone else's emergency, and learned the exact contour of each other's worst opinions. We broke because I wanted a calendar and he wanted a compass. He left for a project somewhere with subtitles and I said I couldn't follow because I was building stability, which is something you say when you're afraid of choosing and want your fear to sound like a mortgage. If you're wondering about the country, because of course you are and so am I all the time, the plan says Portugal in half the versions and New Zealand in the other half, which should tell you as much about my heart as it does about time zones. Portugal because the word itself is a mouthful of warm bread, because I once had a client who sent me a postcard of tiles like tiny moss-ached arguments and I pinned it to the corkboard by my desk under a paperclip like an ambition I wasn't allowed to name. New Zealand because Julian has work there now and every time he sends a voice note there's wind inside it, a kind of weather that sounds like a person calling your name from a hill you know how to climb. Either way, it's not here. That's the sin in a single phrase. The planning didn't start with tickets. It started with a spreadsheet called Household Budget Q3 where 7 columns in, the numbers line up like a polite little army and then, tucked deeper than anyone would look unless they loved me in the way a detective loves a case, a tab called Miscellaneous. I am not dumb enough to label it Escape. I am not arrogant enough to believe Miscellaneous will fool anyone for long. But in that tab there is a list with currencies I shouldn't be calculating. Visa fees I know too well. Time frames I can recite even drunk on grief, medical exam, police certificate, apostille delays, average processing times that make grown men cry at desks while I bring them tissues and say, there, bureaucracy is a god without tenderness. I am that bureaucracy's handmaiden. I also have a note with the words clothes drying quickly in coastal apartments because I can't stop making even fantasy domestic. I wish I could tell you the moment the plan crossed from silly daydream in the shower to document with a version history, but it was one of those slow leaks you only notice when your socks are already wet. The first message from Julian after 5 years of ceremonial silence arrived as a photo of a microphone wrapped in a scarf like a baby. Caption: even expensive machines get cold. I replied with a picture of the stack of passports on my desk, strategically no names visible, and wrote same. He sent back a voice note where you could hear gulls and the distant everything of a port and he said, Mara, like you say home when you've been away too long. I didn't play it twice because I'm not a masochist. I played it 7 times because I am. I told Eli. It's in my defense file. He knows, Julian messaged. He smiled that good, safe smile and said, "Oh, that guy with no venom, only the faint surprise of a person meeting a character from a book in a supermarket." "He's working near Wellington," I said, as if location can be a polite full stop. "If you reply," Eli said, "remember who you are." He didn't mean it as a warning. He meant it as a blessing. I nodded and felt the world put its finger on a Jenga block I didn't realize was load-bearing. The second thing that happened was a woman in our office, Pam, guardian of the big stapler, saint of the final checklist, said, "Can you believe these kids?" in that tone that means of course she can and will continue to do so anyway, and she forwarded me a client's relationship evidence for a partner visa, screenshots of a shared grocery list, a note from a landlord, a picture of 2 toothbrushes like a sore pair of commas. "What proof did we have back in the day?" she asked. I said something professional, but my chest said we had nothing that would satisfy an officer. We had new bruises and cheap dinners and the feeling that a city would keep our secret if we kept ours. I printed the client's evidence and circled dates with my good pen and went home and opened the showbox and put our passports on top, just to see how wrong it felt. It felt like putting your hand under a tap and watching the water behave. Julian kept writing in that careful, casual way of men who have been trained by fury and want to show their soft belly without losing it to a hawk. He sent a recording of rain on a tin roof and said, "You always liked when sound had corners." He asked about my work and I told him small, ethical stories with names scrubbed off. He said New Zealand felt like a sensible person who'd decided to become beautiful. I said Portugal felt like a beautiful person who'd gotten sober. We made a dumb pact to send each other one sentence a day with a timestamp. He picked 10 p.m. my time because he remembered I get belligerent hungry at 9 and sentimental at 10. Eli goes to bed at 10:30 during the week because mornings demand his respect. There is a 3-window pane of my life that no one but me had ever sat in. Now there were 2 of us. I'm not going to sex it up for you, this is not that story. This is a story about logistics and longing and the way both can wreck a marriage to the exact same tune. I started making a list called Noticings to Remember Later. It had things like our kettle is slower than the one at work, corner shop closes early on Tuesdays, and then slipped in like a child among adults, flights to Wellington cheaper on Wednesdays, holiday payroll cutoffs, rent in Lisbon if we were poor but brave accent. I'd say accent and mean his voice when it opens a door in my head I signed a lease for with someone else. The first overt act of treason was a locksmith. I hired him to change the sticky lock on our laundry door because I am a woman who believes in secure perimeters. But while he was there I asked, out of curiosity, if someone lost a key to a storage unit in a different suburb, what would they do? Which is the dullest sentence and the most exciting because it meant I had a storage unit in a different suburb. I did. I do. Inside it are duplicates of boring, underwear, a raincoat, 2 books I can't be without, a small kettle that I named out loud because apparently I am regressing, Wendy. Pocket change in the currency of a country I might choose. 2 copies of a map, one with only streets, one with circles where I imagine groceries might be purchased by a future me who has forgiven me. You think I'm ridiculous? I am. Ridiculousness is how I know I haven't gone entirely to seed. People will ask, did you tell anyone? Yes. My friend Neve, who saves stray cats and receipts from restaurants where the menu is written in chalk as a matter of principle. She listened while I described the plan like a piece of furniture I want to build without instructions. When I ran out of wood metaphors, she said, "Okay, let's make 2 lists, things that will be true wherever you go and things you're pretending are geography." Into the first went, I overwork, I undereat when anxious, I am kind to strangers but hoard favors from friends, I try to administrate feelings until they turn into paperwork. Into the second, I would be a different person in a sunnier place, my marriage would be easier if I were barefoot more often, hope is seasonal. You can take the first list to Wellington, she said. The second is the story you tell yourself when you're bored of being brave in place. Then she put a sandwich in my hand and said, "Eat while you ruin your life or fix it. But eat." The worst part about my job is how clear it makes the future look. I can sketch the outline of the next 18 months of anyone's life in bullet points and stamps. I know where boredom and panic fit on a calendar. So when Julian wrote, "If you came, how long would it take?" I didn't answer like a woman in love. I answered like a paralegal, depends on stream. With sponsorship and decent luck, 8 to 12 months. On a visitor, immediate entry, but you can't work and you'll start to hate me. He replied, I don't like when your sentences wear uniforms, which is rich coming from someone whose microphones have more protective gear than most babies. If I came, I wrote, I would want to work. He said, of course, as if of course did all the lifting. The thing about of course is it's a spell that dissolves in water. Eli and I had a fight that wasn't a fight, the kind that ends with you both washing the same bowl because if you stop moving you might say something irreversible. He asked, careful, kind, firm, if I still wanted children and if I did, whether they were invited to a life that might include my very old friend who records frogs for a living. I said I didn't know. He said he didn't want to force a timeline, but he didn't want to supervise the disappearance of his own desire either. I said I was tired. He said he was too. We put the bowl on the rack and stared at the window as if the glass might know who we are. How do you pack an exit? Badly at first. I tried to fold entire emotions into Ziploc bags. I stood in Kmart holding a travel-sized shampoo and cried in aisle 7 because the bottle implied a future my current life couldn't hold without shattering. I bought it anyway because Kmart is church for people like me who can't pray out loud. I made playlists with names like Admin Courage and Do It or Don't and Pack the Cords. I ordered a suitcase that arrives flat and becomes a thing by zipping its own perimeter. I didn't open it. I put it in the storage unit next to Wendy the kettle and a blanket with whales on it because the future I plan for is an earnest child. I am not a monster. Or I am, but a domestic one with decent cutlery. Eli and I still go to the market on Saturdays. We buy the cheap strawberries and he always squeezes my hand at the stall because somewhere along the way we turned that into a spell against becoming rude. We still share a bed and sometimes I wake up at 3:04 a.m. because anxiety likes precise minutes, and I lie there with the plan like a burr under my skin and think, you idiot, you are throwing away a kindness most people would buy on lay-by if they could. And then I think about the life where I wake up at 3:04 a.m. on a different side of the planet and hear a gull complain like a grandmother and know that I did the unthinkable and survived my own narrative. The thoughts trade places. I am a revolving door in my own chest. You want a trigger. You want the day the fantasy asked for blood. It was an ordinary Tuesday. A client came in with a folder of chaotic evidence. Photos, payslips, love letters printed with ink so faint I had to tilt the paper like a priest with a relic. Inside was a boarding pass from Lisbon to Sydney. The date was 7 years ago. She said, I thought I was coming for 6 months and I never left. I told her the law. Then I asked, do you ever miss the version of you who thought she would leave? She smiled the saddest competence I've ever seen. I am both women, she said. Most days they take turns. Some days they hold hands. That night Julian sent, I found a house with a cracked blue door that looks like an apology. I typed, I have a storage unit with a kettle named Wendy, and deleted it. I typed, if I come it won't be a holiday from my personality, and deleted it. I typed, I booked a ticket, and deleted it because I hadn't. Then I went to the airport website and hovered over dates like a person practicing a spell. The price changed while I watched, like a sign. I told the sign to mind its business. I told Eli I needed a week to think. He said, take 2 because he is still competing against a person I haven't become and insists on being gracious about it. I booked a cabin by the sea with a bed under a window like a cliché and took 3 books I've pretended to read for a year. The first night I ate pasta from a bowl so big it embarrassed me. The second morning I walked until my calves burned and my mouth tasted like salt even though the wind was polite. On the third day I did the only thing that counts. I pictured both futures not as films but as lists. In the staying one I wrote Eli Sunday markets, my mother 4 suburbs away, certain friendships that grow by neglect, the park where the jacarandas make purple mess you can't be angry at, my office with its terrible coffee and Pam who guards the stapler like a dragon. In the leaving one I wrote a tiny rental with suspicious plumbing, a job that starts 3 rungs down because credentials don't translate, a person who knows my before and is brave enough to say we're not repeating that, a version of me that says I did it, and the price which is everyone else. I sat with those like they were two bowls of water, and I was the dog deciding which one to drink while both my owners watched from different corners of the kitchen. I didn't choose there. I did something less noble and more useful. I opened my laptop and made 2 checklists with equal detail. Checklist A: call therapist, tell Eli the precise shape of the plan so he can look at it not as a storm but as a map, choose staying on purpose, unfollow without ceremony, close the storage unit, bring Wendy home and make tea for our real life, throw out the ticket-adjacent tabs and the fantasy spreadsheets and re-enroll in the course I deferred because the future isn't earned by leaving. Checklist B: tell Eli the precise shape of the plan so he can look at it not as a betrayal but as a decision, call mother, call landlord, call Neve, pack the box that already thinks it is packed, book the actual flight, email 3 firms in Wellington with a cover letter that does not apologize for being alive, send Julian one sentence that says, "I'm coming to find out who I am when I stop narrating and start doing," kiss the life I loved on the forehead, take the bus. I came home with both checklists and put them on the fridge under the magnet shaped like a lemon. Eli read them with the sort of attention you want your doctor to have. He didn't cry. I did. He said, "I want the life where you stay because you choose to, not because you're scared." I said, "I want the life where I leave because I choose to, not because I want a movie montage." We stood there in the doorway of the decision. The doorway did not care for our drama. If you need to know what I did today, it was this: I called my therapist. I told Pam I needed 2 days off, and she narrowed her eyes not with suspicion but with the calculation of a woman who enjoys a calendar. I texted Neve a picture of Wendy, and she sent back a sticker of a raccoon carrying a bindle. I did not text Julian. I wrote him a letter instead, a real paper one with ink that might smear if the postman sweats. In it I said, "I claimed I was faithful, but I've been secretly planning to run away with you to another country, and I am trying to write a different sentence now, one where I either come and take full responsibility for every stitch of the tapestry we'll rip and reweave, or I stay and stop using your voice as a nightlight." Then I licked the envelope and did not send it because this is not a fable. The mail does not save us. Work does. Choice does. You want my ending. I know. I want it too. I want an airport scene or a backyard scene, either way a scene with the kind of soundtrack that lets you know where to put your hope. I can give you only the truest frame. Tonight I am sitting at the table with 2 piles. In one, the showbox, the passports, the lemon magnet, the checklists, Wendy the ridiculous kettle, the suitcase still flat as a promise. In the other, my keys, Eli's hand, the market strawberries in their green punnet, the list of our bills, the silly raccoon sticker, the life that is a good life. I am going to pick up one pile. I am going to carry it down the hall. I am going to live with the weight of that pile like it was made for me. If tomorrow you see a woman at the post office with a letter she can't decide whether to send, be kind. If next week you are at an airport and hear someone crying in a bathroom stall with their suitcase still zipped, be quieter than usual. If a month from now you get a message from a friend that says simply "I did it" or "I didn't," send back "I see you." Because that's all any of us are doing wherever we are, practicing being seen by the version of ourselves that will have to live with what we chose. Tonight I boiled water and made tea without thinking which country I was in, and for a moment I was faithful to something that felt better than any plan. The taste of now, the ordinary mercy of staying long enough in a room to watch the kettle click and truly know that whatever I do next, it will carry my name, not my fear, and not the old song of somebody else's weather.